I find myself formatting drives almost on a daily basis. I was confused the first time I went to format a drive. It presented me with a choice for a partition table with the options of GPT or MBR. It listed MBR as the most compatible, so I chose that one. But I didn't understand exactly what MBR meant, or GPT, or partition table. I originally started out to cover fdisk and gdisk for formatting MBR and GPT partitions respectively, but along the way, I learned that you can actually use fdisk for both. So this is going to be 2 videos, but I will be covering partition tables and MBR versus GPT partitions in this video, and fdisk in the next video. This is B from Tay Talk Tech, and today I'm going to explain to you all about partition tables and MBR versus GPT partitions. Stick with me. I've got a favor to ask. If you like this type of video and want to see more content like it, make sure you are subscribed and hit the bell button for notifications. Also, don't forget to give this video a like if you like it, give it a dislike if you didn't like it. Let me know what you liked, didn't like, or if you have any comments, questions, concerns, or emotional outbursts down in the comments below. And lastly, make sure you stick around all the way to the end of the video to catch all the info. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We're going to switch to the desktop, do things a little bit different. I've got a little presentation that we're going to be working on here. So, all right, now the first thing I want to talk about is briefly disk partition tables. And essentially what a disk partition table is the table that divides up the disk and keep track of where all the data is stored on the partition. So essentially it is a map of your drive. And this right here is just kind of a visual representation of that. And we can see right here, we got the partition table. It's got all of this information. Now we're not going to go over everything here because I don't want to bog you down with information on this. If you do want more information, it's pretty easy just to go ahead and Google disk partition table and you'll find tons of resources out there. So let's go ahead and switch to the next one where we're going to talk about MBR versus GPT structure. So MBR or master boot record partitions have a bit of reserve space at the beginning of the drive containing information about how the data is organized. It also contains code to launching the operating system. And you can see in this image here, we've got it all right here. This is where our partition table is going to be, right here at the very, very front. All right, and then these are also known as DOS or MS-DOS partitions. Especially in Linux, you'll see them as DOS or MS-DOS. So if you see those, just know that those are MBR partitions. These have been around since about the 1980s. You've got a maximum partition table capacity of 2 terabytes, maximum of 4 primary partitions or 1 extended partition that can be carved up into 23 additional partitions. With the 1 extended partition with the 23 additional partitions and 3 primary partitions, it supports up to 26 total partitions. And for as far as your BIOS goes for the basic input and outputs, this is going to only support legacy BIOS, and I'll actually show you what that looks like on the next screen once we get through the GPT partitions. Now, GPT or GUID partition tables store the data on how the partition are organized and how to boot throughout the drive versus just at the beginning. And you can see that it's got here, we've got multiple different places where it's spread out throughout the drive here in this image that's here in front of us. Now, these were developed in the 90s. I believe it was Intel that developed them. Maximum capacity is 9.7 zettabytes. That is 1,000,000,000 terabytes. So that's like just a crap ton of bytes. It supports up to 128 partitions, and it supports the new UEFI standard. Now let me just go ahead and show you the difference between the 2 BIOSes just so you actually have an image of what those look like. And here on the left, we've actually got the legacy BIOS, and that's the one that's really just ancient looking, kind of basic looking. It's got, you know, everything to do with using your keyboard and all that kind of stuff. The one on the right, that's going to be the UEFI BIOS. That allows us to interact with our BIOS in a much more robust way using the keyboard, mouse, and all that kind of stuff. And you also have a GUI versus it just being kind of like a, you know, rough visual representation, you know, almost command-like-ish in the legacy BIOS. So there's just a lot more that can be done. And pretty much nowadays, like most modern motherboards that I've used use the UEFI. Now you will still find some devices out there that don't have them. Like when you look at like some of like the mini computers from like, Minis Forum or a B-Link and stuff, like their BIOS will be a legacy BIOS. And right now those are still fine, but in the future they could run into problems just because of the 2 terabyte limitations of MBR and things like that. So just something to keep in mind there. Now, the last thing that I just wanted to go ahead and show you is just a summary right here of both the MBR and GPT, just so you can see them actually side by side and the differences that are amongst them. They're pretty easy. It's pretty easy to understand. I just wanted to go ahead and show you. So now, like when you're actually partitioning out drives, you actually know what they mean by MBR, DOS, MS-DOS, GPT, and a partition table and all that good stuff. So you now know what the disk partition table is and the difference between MBR and GPT partitions. If you want to see more from me, check out my one command series or check out this other video instead. Thank you so much for watching my video and have the greatest of days.